Let me pay you 500,000 naira, but only if you let me suck your breasts. If you're not interested, I'll keep my money. But remember, 500,000 naira is a lot. It could change your life." The words echoed in Bank's mind as she sat silently in the back seat of the car, staring out the window at the flashing lights of Ibukun City. Just 2 weeks ago, her life was simple, filled with dreams, notebooks, and entrance exam brochures. Now she was headed somewhere she couldn't explain, somewhere she feared. But let's rewind. Just days before, Bank had screamed so loud the whole street heard her. She had finally gotten admission into the prestigious University of Calabar. After failing her first JAM and WAC twice, her success was proof that determination pays. Her mother, Aya Bank, danced and wept. Her younger brother, Daimeji, even bought her a small cake. "Ibukun Ayawa, you will become the first university graduate in this family," her father had whispered, eyes filled with pride. For 2 years, she endured the mocking looks from her ex-classmates and the cold pity of neighbors who would say, "Still writing exams again." But Bank never gave up. Everything changed when she opened a DM on Instagram from Debbie, an old schoolmate now living in Lagos. "Congrats, girl. I see your admission. But do you really want to stress 4 years in Calabar when I can plug you into a life where 500K is pocket money?" Bank had laughed at first. She knew Debbie had been living large, always posting photos with expensive bags and iPhones. But Debbie's next message stopped her cold. "Come to Lagos. I'll explain everything. Just trust me." Her mother didn't know when Bank left. She said she was going to Lagos for a school interview. Debbie paid for her transport. The moment she stepped into that bus, her bright future began to dim. Bank arrived in Lagos at 4:40 p.m. The city buzzed with the sound of impatient car horns, smoky suya grills, and shouting conductors. It was loud, fast, and overwhelming. But to Bank, it felt like a dream. She had never been outside Ibukun City before, and now she was in Nigeria's most famous city, where big things happened. Debbie had sent a Bolt ride to pick her up from Djibouti Terminal. The driver, a bald man with a lazy eye, barely spoke. He dropped her off in front of a tall, glassy building with red lights and a metal gate. Bank stood in front of it, confused. This didn't look like a normal house. Before she could ask questions, Debbie came running out in 6-inch heels and a tight red dress. "Baby, you're finally here," she squealed, hugging Bank like a long-lost sister. "You've added Lagos will soon finish your slimness." Bank laughed shyly. Debbie looked very different from the thin girl she remembered from secondary school. Now her hips swung like music and her makeup was perfect. They walked into the building together. Inside was all marble floors and chandeliers. "Is this where you live?" Bank asked, amazed. Debbie giggled. "One of the places. I told you, life is sweet when you know the plug." They took the lift to the 4th floor. When they stepped out, Bank saw 3 other girls in the living room, all with long nails, Brazilian wigs, and glowing skin. They were watching a comedy skit on TV and drinking wine. "This is Bank," Debbie said. "She's new. Our fresh blood." The girls looked her up and down. One smiled. "Welcome. You'll love it here." Bank sat awkwardly while Debbie brought her food and a cold drink. The apartment smelled like vanilla perfume and money. Later that night, Debbie pulled her aside. "Okay, now to the real matter," she said. "Do you want to make fast money or not?" Bank blinked. "Doing what?" "Don't be naive," Debbie said softly. "You think all this luxury is from selling hair on Instagram? Wake up. Lagos is not for saints." Bank's heart dropped. "You don't have to sleep with anyone," Debbie added quickly. "Sometimes, it's just company. Smiling, dancing, being pretty. But when you meet the big men, they'll offer crazy money for simple things." "What kind of things?" "Like, letting them touch you. Or kiss. Or maybe suck breast. Nothing serious, just body access. You still remain in control. You name your price." Bank stared at her. "I don't know, Debbie. I just came for a better opportunity." "This is it, Bank," Debbie said. "You want to struggle in Calabar for 4 years, or do you want to make 500,000 this weekend?" Bank didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling while the girls laughed and danced in the next room. Her phone buzzed again. Debbie had sent her a message. "I will pay you 500,000 naira, but only if you let me suck your breasts." Her heart pounded. She felt dirty. But her bank account had only 1,800 Nigerian nairas. Her school admission was still far, and her mom's health bills were growing. She didn't reply. But in the morning, She dressed up anyway. Bank stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Her face looked different under the city lights, older, unsure. The outfit Debbie gave her the night before clung to her body like it didn't want to let go. It was a short black gown with thin straps and red heels that made her knees wobble. Her hair had been quickly straightened, and fake lashes now curled above her eyelids. She barely recognized herself. The man was already waiting in the lounge downstairs. Debbie handed her a white purse. "Be nice," she said. "He's not like the others. He just wants comfort. Nothing more." "What if I don't want to do this?" Bank whispered. Debbie shrugged. "Then give me back the money for your transport, the food, and the clothes you're wearing. Do you have 45,000 naira right now?" Bank froze. "That's what I thought," Debbie added, eyes suddenly cold. "It's just breasts. Not your life. He'll pay 500K. Clean. In and out. No police, no camera." The room felt like it was spinning. Bank's hands trembled as she followed Debbie downstairs. The man was in his 40s, pot-bellied, with small eyes that scanned her body immediately. He wore a gold chain and smelled like expensive cologne and cigarette smoke. His voice was slow and heavy. "You're the one?" he asked. "Fine girl. I like your lips." Bank nodded stiffly. Debbie gave a small smile. "She's fresh, Oga. Straight from Ibukun City." He chuckled, then licked his lower lip. "I'll give you 250,000 Nigerian nairas now," he said, pulling out a brown envelope. "When I'm done, I'll transfer the rest." Bank stared at the cash. That was her mother's hospital bills, her school fees, her hostel rent, all in one place. He reached for her hand. "Come now. I won't bite." She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to disappear. But her legs didn't move. He led her to a private room inside the lounge. Low lights, slow music, soft chairs. He took off his agbada and sat. "Sit beside me," he said. She obeyed. "Relax. You'll get used to it," he said, brushing her shoulder. All the girls do. When his hand reached her chest, her eyes filled with tears. She bit her lips so she wouldn't cry. But inside her head, everything shattered. When it was over, she walked out slowly. Debbie was waiting by the corner. "See," she said. "Not so hard. You did well. You're stronger than you think." Bank didn't reply. Her chest felt empty. "You'll get the transfer this night," Debbie added. "Rest. Tomorrow, I'll introduce you to Madam. She's the one that controls everything in this city." Bank climbed into bed and curled into herself. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Nigeria Naira 250,000 received." She stared at the screen, numb. She had money now. But what had she lost to get it? Bank didn't sleep that night. She lay on the mattress in the corner of the girl's room, curled up under a thin pink bedsheet, her eyes wide open. The 250,000 Nigerian nairas alert was still on her phone screen. She must have opened it more than 20 times. The money was real. Her breasts were still sore. And her soul, somewhere deep inside, felt like it had started to rot. Around her, the other girls snored softly. One of them, a fair-skinned girl named Mimi, turned in her sleep and whispered, "No, please, I'm tired." Bank sat up slowly. She walked to the window and opened it slightly. The night breeze from Lekki Phase 1 kissed her face gently, but it couldn't cool the burning shame in her chest. She wanted to go home. She picked up her phone to call her mother. Then she stopped. What would she say? "Mama, I sold my dignity today for school fees." Her throat tightened. By morning, Debbie was already dressed in a yellow jumpsuit, sipping iced coffee like a celebrity. She didn't ask how Bank felt. She only said one thing. "Madam will see you today. Don't say too much. Just nod and smile." Bank followed her without asking questions. They arrived at a gated mansion in a hidden corner of Ikoyi. Bank had never seen a house so big outside of movies. Black jeeps lined the driveway. Uniformed guards held assault rifles. Inside, everything smelled of money, perfume, marble, and new leather. Then Madam walked in. Her name was Miss Tenny, but everyone just called her Madam. She was tall, dark-skinned, and curvy, wearing a silky green robe and diamond earrings. Her nails were long and blood-red. Her smile was sharp like a blade. "So this is the girl," she said, her voice deep and calm. Debbie nodded. "Bank. Straight from Ibukun City. She passed the first test." Madam sized her up. "You're pretty. Soft eyes. Good for business. But you look like you still have a conscience. That's a liability." Bank lowered her eyes. Madam walked around her like a buyer inspecting an item in a market. You're lucky. You've entered a family that will protect you. But let me tell you now, there's no going back. If you leave without permission, your face will be on the streets. We will find you. You'll lose everything. Understand? Bank nodded, her heart pounding. Good, Madam said. Your name is no longer Bank. From now on, you're Candy. Classy, mysterious, soft. Got it? Bank whispered. Yes, Ma. Madam turned to Debbie. Take her to the Lecky house. She'll join the other girls tonight. One of my senators is coming. I want her in red. That evening, Bank stared at herself in the mirror again, now wearing a silky red dress, heels that hurt her toes, and makeup that made her look older than her age. Candy, she whispered. That's who you are now. She felt sick. But Debbie knocked on the door with a wide smile. Client is downstairs. Come. He's rich and generous. Bank followed her out. As the door closed behind her, she felt it deep in her chest. She was already too far gone. The house in Lecky wasn't just a house. It was a fortress of secrets. Tall, white walls surrounded it, with no visible gate. You entered through a side entrance where your face was scanned. Cameras were hidden in flower pots. Armed guards dressed in black stood at every corner. Bank knew immediately. This was not a place for normal visitors. Debbie whispered to her as they stepped inside. This house is where the real money flows. Ministers, CEOs, oil men. But never ask questions. Never. The main lounge was a glowing fantasy. Everything sparkled, golden chandeliers, velvet couches, diamond-shaped mirrors. Soft music floated through the air, and the girls were already moving around in elegant dresses, sipping drinks they didn't even swallow. Bank had seen hotels before, but this place? It looked like something out of a forbidden dream. This is where Candy is born, Debbie said, tightening Bank's red dress from the back. Forget who you were before. Tonight, just smile. Nod. Speak only when asked. If a man touches your waist, you don't flinch. If he offers you a drink, you take it, but only pretend to sip. Don't ever get drunk. And if you see Madam give you the look, know you've made a mistake. Bank swallowed hard. She couldn't breathe properly in the dress, and her heels felt like knives, but she nodded. There was no turning back now. Just then, Madam entered. Behind her was a short man with a round face and tribal marks. His agbada had real gold embroidery. His eyes scanned the girls slowly, then rested on Bank. That one, he said. The one in red. Candy, ABI? She's new, right? Yes, Senator, Madam said with a polite bow. Very fresh. Very obedient. The man smiled. His teeth were stained from chewing bitter cola. He walked toward Bank and touched her cheek. I like you already. Come and sit beside me. Bank followed him to the VIP corner of the lounge. A guard closed the glass door behind them. Everything in the room screamed money, from the golden ashtray to the imported wine. So you're from where? The man asked, opening a bottle and pouring himself a drink. Ibukun City, sir, Bank answered softly. You don't look like those bush girls. You have class. He chuckled. Debbie trained you well. He sat back and reached into his pocket, pulling out a fat envelope. Nigerian Naira 300,000 up front. You'll get more if you make me happy tonight. No need for full action. I just want you to lie down beside me, laugh at my jokes, and let me hold you. You understand? Bank hesitated for a second, then nodded. He smiled. Good girl. That night, Bank did everything right. She laughed. She let him rest his sweaty hand on her waist. She even hummed a lullaby as he dozed off halfway through his drink. By morning, her account balance had crossed $500,000. Debbie hugged her. You're a natural, she whispered. Soon, Madam will trust you with VIP clients. You'll be rich. Bank smiled weakly. But inside her chest, something heavy had begun to grow. Guilt? Shame? She didn't know. She just knew. She wasn't Bank anymore. She was Candy now. And Candy had no way out. By her third week in the Lecky house, Bank, now fully known as Candy, was no longer treated like the new girl. The other girls had begun to warm up to her. She no longer shared rooms with Mimi and Shade. She now had her own mini-suite with a mirrored wardrobe, her own vanity table, and a small balcony that overlooked the compound. But as her position rose, so did the whispers. The mansion had rules. No phones on the main floor. No guests unless Madam approved. No asking questions. And above all, never go near room 11. It started with a joke. One evening, As the girls applied makeup before another VIP gathering, Mimi casually whispered, "I heard they took Sandra into room 11 last weekend. She hasn't come back." Shade paused her eyeliner. "I thought she traveled." Mimi shook her head. "That's what Madam told people. But you know Sandra was bold. She asked too many questions. About Madam. About money. About the files upstairs. Next thing, she was called for special service. Nobody's seen her since." Bank listened silently, pretending not to care. But something about the way Mimi's voice lowered, and how her eyes flicked toward the hallway, made Bank shiver. Later that night, when everyone was entertaining guests in the lounge, Bank slipped upstairs. The hallway leading to room 11 was dimly lit. Only one security camera blinked red above the doorframe. The other doors on the floor were regular staff rooms and guest suites. But room 11 had no doorknob, only a security pad. She stared at it for a long moment, heart racing. Then she heard footsteps. She turned, and there was Madam, standing in the shadows. "So you're curious?" Madam said, voice calm but cold. "I was just looking for the bathroom," Bank stammered. Madam stepped closer. "Let me tell you something, Candy. Curiosity doesn't end well in this house. You're doing well, making good money, earning my trust. Don't ruin it." Bank nodded quickly. "I'm sorry, Ma." Madam's eyes softened, but only slightly. "Good. There are some things you are better off not knowing." The next day, the atmosphere in the house changed. Everyone moved quieter. Some of the girls avoided Madam completely. Shade even told Bank, "If Madam smiles too much at you, be afraid." Bank tried to focus on her work. She served drinks, laughed with clients, sat through long, creepy stories from old men in caftans. She blocked out everything else. But the seed had been planted. What happened to Sandra? What was inside room 11? And why were there names in the staff register that no one ever saw? At night, she began to dream of locked rooms and girls screaming. But each morning, she still put on her red dress, painted her lips, and stepped into the lounge like nothing was wrong. Because in the Lecky house, survival meant pretending. And no one survived by asking questions. The envelope came early in the morning, before sunrise, before any of the girls had even gotten out of bed. It was delivered by a silent driver who never spoke a word. One of the guards handed it to Madam while she was still in her satin robe, sipping black coffee by the poolside. Bank noticed how Madam's smile disappeared the moment she opened it. Her hand paused midair. Then slowly, she folded the envelope again, stood up, and walked inside without saying a word. By noon, the entire house was silent. No music, no laughter, no perfume. Bank found Mimi in the kitchen, sitting stiffly at the table. "What happened?" Bank whispered. Mimi didn't answer immediately. She just pointed to the fridge. There, taped to the fridge door, was a blood-stained envelope. Bank stepped closer. Written across it in red ink, "No blood," were the words. "You know what you did." Debbie entered the kitchen then, her heels clicking loudly on the tiled floor. She looked annoyed. "Madam said no one is to leave the compound. Phones are with the guards. No guests tonight. Everyone stays in." "But what's going on?" Bank asked. Debbie's face darkened. "You don't ask. You obey." "Got it." Bank nodded quickly. But something inside her twisted, an old fear she thought she had buried back in Ibicon when her dreams first started to die. That evening, one of the junior girls, Anita, was caught crying in the laundry room. Her hands trembled as she folded towels. Bank approached her gently. "Are you okay?" Anita looked up, eyes wide and red. "I saw Sandra. I swear I saw her yesterday night." Bank froze. "What do you mean?" She was standing outside the gate, in a red gown. Her feet were bare, and her mouth was... Anita paused, shivering. It was sewn shut. Bank's mouth went dry. "Did you tell anyone?" Anita nodded. "I told Debbie. She slapped me and said if I ever say Sandra's name again, I'll disappear too." That night, as Bank lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling and thought about the envelope. Who sent it? And why did it make Madam so uneasy? She thought about Sandra. She thought about room 11. She thought about the way Madam's eyes had narrowed when she caught her snooping. And then, just before she drifted off to sleep, she heard it. A knock on her door. Soft. Rhythmic. For knocks. Pause. Two more. Bank sat up quickly. "Who's there?" Silence. She walked slowly to the door and opened it just a crack. No one was there. Only an envelope on the floor, with her name on it, and a red stain at the corner. She picked it up, her hands shaking. Inside was a note, scrawled in jagged handwriting. "You're next if you don't stop digging. They're watching you, Candy." The note burned in Bank's hand. She didn't sleep that night. She sat in the corner of her room with all the lights off, clutching her pillow, trying to control her breathing. Her mind spun with questions. Who knew she was digging? How did they know? Was it Madam? Or someone else? And most importantly, how did they know her real name? Because in the Lecky house, no one called her Bank. Everyone called her Candy. Her real name was a secret. Or at least it used to be. The next morning, the mood in the mansion was tense. Girls whispered in corners. Guards looked more alert, and Madam paced the hall with her phone pressed to her ear all day. There were no visitors. No food orders. Not even music. Debbie brushed past Bank in the hallway and said under her breath, "If anyone asks, you've been sick. Don't talk to the clients tonight." That confirmed it. Something was very wrong. Bank stayed in her room all day, rereading the note again and again. By evening, she made a decision. She needed to hear a familiar voice. A real one. Someone from before. She had hidden her original SIM card in the sole of an old sandal. She dug it out carefully, popped it into a backup phone Debbie once gave her as a gift, and locked herself in the bathroom. She dialed a number she hadn't called in months. Her mother's. The phone rang and rang. Then a voice answered, but not her mother's. "Hello? Hello, who be this?" Bank blinked. "Sorry. Please, is this Madam Alia Bank's line? I'm her daughter." There was a pause. Then the voice lowered. My dear, we've been trying to reach you. Your mother has been very sick." Bank's heart dropped. "What? Since when?" 2 months now. She collapsed at the market. She's been in and out of the clinic. Some days she talks, some days she doesn't. Your brother said you abandoned her." Tears welled up in Bank's eyes. No, I didn't abandon her. I didn't know. They took my phone. I'm not judging you, my dear. But she kept calling your name even when she was unconscious. Bank, my daughter." The voice cracked. Bank wiped her tears, trying not to sob too loudly. "Please, tell her I'll send money. I'll come. Just don't let her give up. Please." "I will. But don't wait too long. Oh, she's not doing well." The line went dead. Bank dropped the phone on the cold tile floor and slid down against the wall. Everything was unraveling. She had traded her peace for money. And now, she was losing everything. Her name, her mind, and her mother. But before she could cry too much, the door banged open. It was Debbie. Her face was pale. Her hand held a phone. "You used your SIM?" Bank froze. "Who told you to call anybody?" Debbie's voice was sharp, panicked. Bank stood slowly. "I needed to know if my mom was okay." Debbie pulled her aside and whispered harshly, "You just exposed your location. They monitor SIM cards. If the wrong person knows you're alive and working here." She stopped herself, looked around, then added, "You don't understand how deep this thing goes, Candy. You're not just some small girl anymore. You've been in VIP rooms. You've heard things, seen things. That makes you dangerous. You think they'll let you walk away?" Bank's throat tightened. "I just want to help my mom." Debbie looked like she wanted to scream, but instead, she hugged her tightly and whispered, "If you want to leave, you'll need help. But it comes at a price." "A price?" Bank whispered back. Debbie nodded. "And you can't trust everyone here. Not even me." Suddenly, the bathroom lights flickered. Then everything went dark. And somewhere deep in the mansion, a door creaked open. Room 11 had just been unlocked. The power outage didn't last more than a minute. But it was enough. In that 1 minute of darkness, a silence fell over the mansion. Not the usual silence, but something unnatural. Even the frogs outside seemed to stop croaking. The air felt heavier. The girls stayed frozen in their rooms. The guards, normally restless, stood statue still. And down the hall, room 11, the one with no knob and no sound, clicked open. Bank heard it from inside the bathroom. Even Debbie stopped mid-sentence and looked toward the hallway. "Stay here," she whispered, voice tight with fear. "Don't come out." "But what's happening?" Bank asked. Debbie looked her dead in the eye. "That room isn't for any of us. Not for girls. Not for staff. It's for punishments. And secrets. If it opens, someone is in serious trouble." With that, she slipped out of the bathroom, shutting the door behind her. Bank pressed her ear against the bathroom wall, heart pounding. She could hear nothing. No footsteps, no voices. Just a deep, eerie hum in the walls, like electricity charging something big. She waited, 5 minutes, 10. Then, Her curiosity betrayed her. She stepped out into the hallway. The mansion was dark, save for the emergency wall lights. The hall to room 11 glowed in an unnatural bluish tint. As Bank crept closer, she noticed something odd. The guards were missing. The lounge was empty. Even Mimi and Shade's doors were ajar. She reached the corridor and peered at the door. Room 11 was wide open. For the first time since her arrival, Bank saw what was inside. It wasn't a room, it was a chamber. The walls were soundproofed with dark foam. Red lights glowed from the ceiling. There were strange machines, cameras, wires, a long metal table with restraints, and cabinets filled with syringes and bottles labeled with foreign characters. There were also photos. Dozens of printed photos pinned to one side of the room. Men in suits. Girls in red dresses. Some of the girls she recognized. Others, she didn't. Then, a folder on the table caught her eye. Project Butterfly Files. Inside, she saw files on all the girls in the house, including her. Her birth name. Her school. Her mother's market stall. Her old boyfriend. Even her failed jam scores. How did they get all this? Suddenly, a cold voice behind her said, "I warned you not to dig." Bank spun around. Madam, dressed in black. Her eyes were colder than ever. Bank clutched the file, stepping back. Madam walked toward her slowly. "Now you've seen it. You know too much. You're part of this now." "I didn't ask for this," Bank shouted, her voice shaking. "But you chose this," Madam said. "The night you walked into my car. The night you agreed to be Candy. This life doesn't forgive curiosity, Bank." Then she added coldly, "You either stay, or you disappear." Just then, a scream echoed through the mansion, high-pitched, raw, and coming from outside. Madam's face twitched slightly. One of the girls tried to run. Poor choice. Bank's hands trembled. Her mind screamed to run, but her legs refused. Before she could decide, two guards appeared behind Madam. She knew. In that moment, her life was hanging by a thread. "Take her back to her room," Madam said flatly. "And lock it." Bank tried to protest, but the guards were quick. One held her by the arm, the other snatched the folder. As they dragged her away, she caught one last glimpse of the chamber, its red lights flickering, and Sandra's ID photo pinned to the wall with a bloody thumbtack. The door slammed shut behind her, the bolt locking with a heavy clunk. Bank was alone in her room. No phone, no folder, and now, no doubt, this wasn't just a mansion, it was a trap. She paced back and forth, panic crawling across her skin like ants. Her breaths were shallow. Her thoughts raced. Room 11 was real. The threats were real. Madam knew everything, too much. And Bank now knew too much too. That made her a problem. A liability. And in this place, liabilities didn't last. She sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. In the silence, she replayed everything she'd seen, Sandra's photo, the machines, the project, Butterfly Files, her own name in that folder, her mother's voice over the phone, Debbie's warning, "Not even me." She whispered to herself, "I need to leave. Tonight." But how? The windows were reinforced. Her room had no balcony. The only door was locked from the outside. There were two guards at every hallway and security cameras in the corners. She had seen it all during her first week here. Then suddenly, a knock. Soft. Sharp. 3 taps. Bank stood frozen. The knocks came again. Tap. 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 A girl's voice followed, barely a whisper. "You want to leave?" Bank rushed to the door and whispered, "Yes." "I know a way," the voice replied. "Midnight. Laundry room. Don't tell anyone. Not even Debbie." "Who are you?" Bank whispered. But the voice was already gone. She backed away from the door, heart pounding, unsure whether to trust what she'd just heard. Was it a trap? Or hope? Still, it was the only thread she had. The mansion stayed quiet for the rest of the evening. The music didn't play. The clients didn't come. Even dinner was silent, served through a slot in her door. Time moved like honey. Slow, sticky, suffocating. Midnight crawled in. The hallway lights dimmed to their usual night setting. Most girls were already asleep, or pretending to be. Bank put on a black hoodie and soft slippers. She slipped a small blade, taken from a broken makeup set, into her bra. She waited 5 more minutes, heart thudding in her chest like a drum. Then she opened her door slowly, unlocked. The guards were gone. Bank crept down the hallway like a shadow, avoiding the creaky spots on the floor. She moved past room 11, eyes glued to the door. It was shut again, but now she knew what was inside, and she would never forget it. Finally, she reached the laundry room. It was empty, dimly lit, clothes hanging like ghosts on the line. And there, in the corner, crouched a girl with short hair and deep scars across her arms. Bank had never seen her before. "You're the one who knocked?" Bank whispered. The girl nodded. "I was once like you. New, naive. Then I found out what this place really is. They kept me locked for 6 months in that room, but I escaped once. I know the tunnels." "Tunnels?" She nodded again. "Under the mansion. Old sewage lines. Madam doesn't know they're still open. Only the first batch of girls knew. I'm the last one left." Bank stepped closer. "Then let's go? I can't stay here anymore." The girl studied her face carefully. "You're not ready. You're still scared." "I'm not scared," Bank lied. The girl stood slowly, walked to a wall panel, and slid it open with her bare hand. Behind it was a hole in the wall, dark, with a musty smell drifting out. "We crawl through here. No noise. No turning back. Once inside, you either make it to the street, or you disappear." Bank hesitated. The girl turned and whispered, "If you follow me, Candy, you follow death and freedom at the same time." "Are you sure?" Bank closed her eyes, then nodded. And just like that, they slipped into the wall, into the dark tunnel that might save her life, or end it. The tunnel was colder than Bank expected. The air was thick, stale with age, and laced with the smell of rust, mold, and forgotten things. It felt like the walls had been holding their breath for years, waiting for someone to crawl back inside them. The girl with the scars, who hadn't yet told Bank her name, crawled ahead with ease, like she had done this 100 times. Bank followed, her palms scraping against damp bricks, knees bruising with each slow push forward. They couldn't stand. They couldn't talk. They could only breathe. And even that felt too loud. Behind them, the tunnel sealed shut. A panel had slid into place, erasing all trace of their escape. There was no going back. Every few meters, they passed strange markings, chalk symbols, old wristbands, even a rosary nailed into the side of the wall. Reminders of girls who had tried this before. Some maybe made it out. Most maybe didn't. After what felt like half an hour, they reached a wider space where they could crouch. The girl turned to Bank, her face glowing faintly in the dark from a tiny torch she carried in her mouth. "They started this place as a safe house during the pipeline riots," she whispered. "It was supposed to help victims of trafficking. But when funding dried up, someone saw another way to make money." "Madam?" Bank asked. The girl nodded. "And the clients. They're not just rich. Some of them are police, judges, politicians. They built this house to trap girls and make sure no one escapes with evidence." Bank's blood ran cold. The girl handed her a tiny bag. Inside, pepper spray, ID of a girl who vanished 2 years ago, and 5,000 Nigerian nairas. "Use it when you get outside. Don't use your real name." "Why are you helping me?" Bank whispered. The girl looked down. "Because someone once tried to help me, but I was too scared to follow her. I left her behind." A week later, they found her body floating in the lagoon. Bank's stomach turned. They continued crawling. Up ahead, a new sound. Water, rushing, fast, violent. The tunnel sloped downward until they reached a metal grate. The girl pulled out a wrench from her waistband and began unscrewing the bolts. Bank helped, her hands slipping on the wet metal. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed behind them. Bank froze. "Did you hear that?" The girl stopped. Another clang, then a shuffling sound, as if something, or someone, was crawling toward them from the direction they came. "Faster," the girl hissed. They pulled the grate open just enough to slide through. Below them was an old water channel, fast, dirty, but leading somewhere. "We jump," the girl said. Before Bank could argue, the girl was gone. Splash. Bank looked back. The shuffling was louder now. Shadows moved in the tunnel. She didn't wait. She jumped. The water hit her like ice. She was pulled instantly into a current. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Her arms flailed. The walls rushed past her in a blur of darkness. Somewhere in the noise, the girl shouted, "Left! Go left at the fork." Bank obeyed, kicking and twisting just in time to follow the current as it split. Then light. A small grate ahead, glowing orange from the street lamps outside. Bank swam toward it, coughing and kicking. The girl had already reached it and was pushing the bars with her foot. "Help me," she shouted. Together they shoved until the bars bent just enough to squeeze through. One after the other, they climbed out, dripping, gasping, into a shallow canal behind a dusty mechanic shop in the outskirts of Ibukun City. Bank collapsed onto the dirt, staring up at the night sky. She was out. She had escaped the mansion. But now came the real danger. How to stay free, and how to survive. The night air in Ibukun City felt different now. It didn't smell like freedom. It smelled like fear. Bank sat against the rusted fence behind the mechanic shop, soaked to her bones. Her hoodie clung to her like a second skin, dripping dirty canal water onto the cracked concrete. Her legs trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what she'd just done. She had escaped a place no girl ever left. And now, she was a fugitive. The girl with the scars crouched beside her, breathless and alert. She hadn't said a word since they emerged from the tunnel. Her ears twitched at every sound, passing bikes, barking dogs, even the whistle of wind. "We don't stay here," she finally whispered. "They'll come looking. They always do." Bank's voice cracked. "Who are you?" The girl hesitated. "Name's Tolu," she said. "At least, that's who I used to be. Now I just survive." Tolu stood up and reached into her pocket. She handed Bank a small brown envelope, barely dry. "Take this. ID, 5,000 Nigerian Nairas, and a fake school pass. You're Bucky now. From Osun State. Tell no one your real name. Not even me." Bank looked at the photo ID. The girl in the picture had a slight resemblance to her, enough to pass with some luck. "I have to call my mom," Bank said, holding back tears. "She'll think I'm dead." "No phones," Tolu snapped. "Not yet. They'll trace it in minutes. You call her now, they'll find her. And you." Bank's lips quivered. "I can't just disappear," she said. "You already did," Tolu said darkly. "The moment you stepped into Madam's car." They left the alley and slipped into the chaos of Ibukun's nightlife. Horns blared from Danfoss. Smoke curled from suya stands. Music poured from clubs with names like Blue Lounge and Club 6. Girls in glittery heels walked beside older men in tinted SUVs. Nobody looked twice at Bank or Tolu. In this city, everything looked normal, until you knew what to look for. They reached a rundown guest house in a backstreet called Odo Lane. The sign outside flickered, Rest Point Lodge. The receptionist was half asleep, stoned, or drunk, but Tolu slapped down a 1,000 Nigerian Nairas note and whispered something in his ear. He handed them a rusted key without question. Room 2B. Inside, the bed creaked, the curtains were stained, and the fan buzzed like a dying insect. But Bank didn't care. She dropped to the floor and cried. Tolu sat quietly, watching the door, blade in hand. After some time, Bank wiped her face. "How do you live like this? Always hiding." Tolu's expression didn't change. "Because the only other option is going back." There was a long silence between them. Then Tolu said something that stuck in Bank's mind for hours after. "This city doesn't let girls like us go. It only pretends to, until it swallows you again." By morning, Bank knew they couldn't stay long. She looked out the broken window and saw a black Prado parked across the street. Windows tinted. Engine off. No one inside. But it wasn't there the night before. Tolu walked in with bread and bottled water from a kiosk. She saw the car instantly. Her eyes narrowed. "They found us." Bank's breath caught. "What do we do?" Tolu didn't blink. "We run." But where do you run when the people chasing you control the city? Where do you hide when your face is already on a file in room 11? And what happens when someone you thought you could trust, someone like Debbie, starts asking too many questions back at the mansion? By the time Bank and Tolu stepped out of the Rest Point Lodge, the black Prado was gone. But its message had been delivered. "They know," Tolu whispered. Bank's heart hadn't stopped pounding since dawn. Every face in the crowd looked suspicious. Every Okada rider could be a plant. Every Kiki could be trailing them. Ibukun City no longer looked like a place. It looked like a trap. They crossed several busy roads, Alaba Junction, then under the flyover near Kola bus stop, blending into the rush hour madness. Tolu led the way, sharp-eyed and silent, ducking behind kiosks and hopping fences with the ease of someone who had done this many times. Eventually, they reached a local hair salon, Benny Beauty Spot. Inside were 6 chairs, 2 broken hairdryers, and a fan spinning slowly like a tired waiter. A woman in a wrapper and wide bonnet looked up from her morning pap. "Tolu." The woman stood, surprised. "Shoo," Tolu said, locking the door behind them. "What had happened this time?" Tolu didn't answer. She just nodded at Bank, who stood awkwardly in the corner, clothes still damp from the night before. The woman sighed deeply. Sit down. Both of you. Her name was Annie Benny, and she wasn't just a salon owner. She was one of the few people who had once escaped the mansion years ago. But unlike Tolu, Benny had disappeared from that world entirely. Changed her look, name, trade. She used the salon as a front for hiding girls who managed to get out. I told you never to come here again, she whispered as she served them hot beans and plantain. This place is not safe anymore. Madam's people know my face. I had no choice, Tolu said. Auntie Benny looked at Bank. And you, what's your name? Bank hesitated. Bucky. She raised an eyebrow. Real name. Bank said nothing. Good, Benny said. That means you're learning. But safety never lasted long in Ibicon. While they braided Bank's hair into short cornrows to disguise her appearance, Benny scrolled her old Nokia phone. Her face turned pale. She's on the missing girls list, Benny said. Full name. Photo. Even her jam number. They're calling her a suspected runaway from a cult ring. Bank's hands began to shake. They've reported you to the police, Benny said. Now you're not just running from Madam. You're running from the law. How? Bank cried. How did they twist everything? That's what they do, Tolu said. They own the story. Suddenly, Benny turned to Tolu. Did you tell anyone else where you were taking her? No. Are you sure? Tolu didn't answer right away. Then her lips tightened. Only one person. I told Debbie. Bank froze. You what? I thought she might want to leave too. She was like you. Soft. Still had hope. No, Bank whispered. Debbie didn't want out. She warned me. Yes, but she never said she wanted to leave. And then, a loud knock. 3 sharp bangs on the salon's back door. Benny turned off the fan. Everyone froze. Another knock. Followed by a voice. Auntie Benny, Nami, Debbie. Please open. I'm alone. Tolu looked through the peephole. It's her. Benny held a finger to her lips. Whispered to Bank. Go. Through the bathroom window. Go now. But what if she's telling the truth? Bank whispered. Let me remind you, Benny said coldly. Trust. No. One. Not even the ones who cry with you. Tolu was already opening the bathroom window. Bank took one last look at the door. Then ran. Outside, the alley was narrow and choked with trash. Tolu landed beside her, breathing hard. We go north, she said. I know a tailor's shop in Abadairo. She hides girls. Bank nodded, but her eyes stung. She had trusted Debbie. She wanted to believe someone inside still had good in them. But here in Ibicon, even your shadow could betray you. And somewhere behind that salon door, Debbie had walked in. But what had she walked in with? Tears. Or men? Abadairo wasn't far, but it felt like a different world. Where Ibicon's center was loud and fast and full of flashing lights, Abadairo was slower, deeper, the kind of place where everyone knew your mother's name, and your secrets didn't stay secrets for long. Bank and Tolu kept their heads down as they navigated narrow side streets, avoiding main roads where police could patrol. They walked past old barbershops, roadside roasted yam stalls, and girls sitting on plastic chairs getting their hair done under the midday sun. No one looked twice. To strangers, they were just 2 girls walking home from school. But inside Bank's chest, panic bubbled. Every Okada that slowed down made her heart jump. Every man in a crisp shirt reminded her of the clients. Every time she blinked, she saw Debbie's face. Not smiling, not crying. Just unreadable, like a mask. Here, Tolu said, stopping in front of a shop with a faded blue signboard. Mama Fade's Tailoring Fashion Design, since 1986. A line of school uniforms hung at the entrance. The sound of a sewing machine buzzed steadily from inside. As they stepped in, the smell of cloth, kerosene, and old air surrounded them. Mama Fade sat in the corner, short, plump, and wearing glasses too big for her face. Her eyes didn't rise from the dress she was stitching. You again, she said without looking up. Tolu cleared her throat. She needs help. Mama Fade sighed, pulled the fabric out from under the needle, and finally looked at Bank. She said nothing for a long time. Then she stood, walked to the back of the shop, and pulled open a curtain. Behind it was a tiny storage room, filled with old fabric, thread boxes, and a mattress on the floor. Stay here till dark, she said. No lights. No sound. Bank stepped inside, but Tolu didn't follow. You're not coming? Bank asked. Tolu shook her head. I have to check something. What? Tolu didn't answer. She turned and walked out, leaving Bank in the dim silence. Hours passed. Bank sat on the mattress, knees to her chest, eyes on the cracks in the ceiling. Her stomach growled. Her clothes still smelled like the canal. Her mind spun in loops. What if Talu didn't come back? What if she was caught? What if she led them here? The curtain shifted. Bank jumped, heart in her throat. But it was Mama Fade, holding a plate of EBA and okra soup. Her face was stern, but her voice was soft. You've seen things you shouldn't have, she said as she handed the food. But it's not your fault. Bank took the plate with shaking hands. Why do you help people like me? Mama Fade sat on an old bench. Because years ago, I had a daughter like you. Beautiful, smart, full of fire. Bank's spoon froze midair. What happened to her? Mama Fade's jaw clenched. She met a friend who promised her a modeling job. A week later, she vanished. We found her 4 months later, in a guest house in Port Harcourt. She couldn't speak again. She never said a word till the day she died. A lump formed in Bank's throat. I couldn't save my child, Mama Fade whispered. But if I can save someone else's, even for one more night, I will. After dark, Bank crept to the front of the shop, peeking through the curtain. Talu still hadn't returned. Mama Fade handed her a small black bag. If she doesn't come back by midnight, you run. Head for Barua. There's a food seller named Saad. She knows what to do. Bank held the bag close. But what if she comes back and I've gone? Mama Fade looked her straight in the eyes. Then she'll know you listened. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. Then a bike screeched to a halt outside. Mama Fade's face darkened. She reached for the curtain and whispered, "Go now. Out the back. Now." Bank didn't stop to ask questions. Mama Fade opened the back door of the tailoring shop, revealing a dark alley thick with shadows and buzzing mosquitoes. The night air smelled of smoke, dust, and something sour. Maybe burnt plastic, maybe danger. "Take this," Mama Fade whispered, slipping a folded 500 Nigerian Nairas note and a tiny torchlight into Bank's palm. "Move fast. No turning back." Bank nodded, her feet already moving. The moment the door closed behind her, the world changed. She was alone again. Just like the night she escaped the mansion. Just like the night she met Tolu. Just like every night since. The streets behind Abadairo were narrow and crooked, winding through iron sheet houses and poorly lit paths. Every sound, footsteps, bike horns, dogs barking, sounded louder in the dark. Bank ran for minutes without looking back, passing silent compounds and half-closed shops. At one point, a group of boys were huddled around a makeshift pool table on the road, laughing and smoking. She crossed the road to avoid them. Her feet ached, her chest burned. The torchlight flickered as she moved. She didn't know exactly where Barua was, but she knew one thing. If she stopped, she'd be caught. By the time she reached a larger road, she was shaking. Her slippers were broken, and one toenail had split from kicking a stone. She flagged down a kiki and climbed in without thinking. "Barua," she said breathlessly. The driver glanced back. "Nigeria Naira 700. She handed him the note from Mama Fade. "That's all I have." The man shrugged and started the engine. As the kiki rumbled through the city, Bank watched the buildings pass. Hair salons, viewing centers full of boys watching football, churches holding late-night vigils, and girls standing under red lights by club entrances. She looked away. The ride felt too fast and too slow at the same time. Her stomach twisted with each bump. Every vehicle that slowed beside them made her grip the seat tighter. Then, flash, a motorcycle zoomed past them. The rider wore a red cap. Another bike followed closely behind. Bank ducked. It was them. She didn't need to see their faces to know. The bikes, the speed, the scent of cigarette and perfume. These were the mansion's boys. She gritted her teeth and said, "Driver, please drop me here." "But this isn't Barua yet." "I said here." He stopped reluctantly. Bank jumped out, nearly twisting her ankle. She darted into a roadside buka and crouched behind a crate of Fonda bottles, hiding her face with her scarf. She watched the bikes pass again. They didn't stop. Not this time. Minutes later, she emerged, heart still racing. She asked the buka woman, "Please, where's Sada's food place?" "I heard it's in Barua." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Sad? The one that sells late-night rice and beans." Bank nodded. "She's 2 streets from here. You go straight, then bend left at the Siya stand. Her signboard day big." Bank didn't wait to say thank you. She ran. Sada's food stand sat under a faded green umbrella, with big coolers of rice and beans lined up like soldiers. A short woman in her 50s stirred the stew pot while spraying herself with mosquito repellent. As soon as Bank appeared, Saad paused. Her eyes scanned Bank's face, her dirty clothes, the cuts on her arms. "You're the one Mama Fade sent?" Bank nodded slowly. "Come," Saad said. "Follow me to the back." The back room was tiny, filled with empty rice sacks and a broken freezer. But there was a mat, and it was quiet. Saad handed her water, bread, and groundnut. "You'll sleep here tonight," she said. "Tomorrow, I'll call someone who can take you out of Ibukun, if they haven't already spread your name to the border." Bank's eyes widened. "Out of Ibukun? Where? Does it matter?" Bank looked down. "No," she said quietly. "It doesn't." That night, for the first time in weeks, Bank cried without stopping. She cried for her mother, who still didn't know where she was. She cried for Tolu, who had disappeared into the night. She cried for Debbie, friend or betrayer, she still didn't know. And she cried for herself, for the girl who had once believed in bright futures. But as her tears soaked the mat, she also whispered a promise into the darkness. "If I survive this, I'll make sure no girl follows the wrong friend out again." Bank woke up to the sound of a knock, soft, 3 taps. She froze. Her body stiffened on the mat. For a moment, she forgot where she was. She thought she was back in that house, back in that darkness, with one of them coming to drag her again. "Bank," a voice whispered. "It's me, Saad." Bank sat up slowly. The back door creaked open, and Saad stepped in, a small Nokia phone in one hand, and her wrapper tied tightly under her chest. "There's someone you need to talk to," she said. Saad handed her the phone. Bank pressed it to her ear with trembling fingers. "Hello." A pause. Then, "Bank." It was a man's voice. "Calm, steady." Who is this?" she asked. "My name is Yomi. I'm a journalist. Mama Fade told me about you." Bank's throat went dry. "Journalist. I'm not here to make your life worse," he said. "I'm trying to expose the people doing this. You're not the first girl I've heard about, but you might be the only one left who can speak." Bank didn't say anything. Yomi continued. "They're connected to politicians, businessmen, even pastors. I've been following them for 6 months. But I need proof. I need names, faces, places." Her lips parted slightly. She remembered that room with the red curtains. The camera. The man who offered her 500,000 Nigerian nairas. The smell of cigar. The broken girl lying beside her. I saw things," she whispered. "I know names. Then you can help us stop this." She handed the phone back to Saad, heart pounding. Saad looked at her. "You don't have to decide now. But if you don't speak, they'll keep doing it to other girls. Younger girls. Poorer girls." Bank sat back on the mat, her thoughts racing. She had wanted to disappear. Now someone wanted her to become visible again. It terrified her. Later that morning, as Saad served her hot pap and akara, she said quietly, "Your face is already known. They'll come looking. If you want to leave this city, it has to be today." Bank blinked. "So soon?" Saad gave a sad smile. "Not everyone gets a second chance. Some girls, they don't get out at all." Bank's mind flashed back to Debbie. Had she made it? Was she trapped? Was she even alive? By afternoon, a car arrived. It was an old Toyota with dusty windows and a driver who never looked her in the eye. Saad handed Bank a small nylon bag with water, cabin biscuits, 2,000 Nigerian nairas in cash, and a simple warning. "Where you're going, don't tell anyone your name. Not even your roommate." Bank nodded. She hugged Saad tight, tears stinging her eyes. "Thank you." Saad stepped back. "Just survive. That's enough for now." The car pulled away from Barua. As they passed the outskirts of Ibukun City, Bank leaned her head against the window. She watched the city disappear behind her, the loud Danfo buses, the mechanic workshops, the teenage girls laughing by the roadside, the blinking club lights, the billboards of fake jobs and promises. She saw the ghosts of what could have been, and what could have ended her. The driver dropped her off in a compound near the edge of Akut, a border town between Ogun and Lagos. A short woman in a hijab took her in. Her name was Ani Titi. She didn't ask questions. She didn't smile either. She just showed Bank a bunk bed in a narrow room with 2 other girls who barely looked up. "You'll stay here till we figure out your next move," Auntie Titi said. Bank wanted to ask who we was, but she knew better now. In this world, questions could kill you. That night, she lay awake. The room was quiet except for the sound of someone sobbing softly on the top bunk. Bank didn't sleep. She kept her eyes open. Because even though she'd escaped Ibukun, she hadn't escaped what was chasing her. The sobbing didn't stop. Bank lay stiffly on the lower bunk, staring at the wooden slats above her. Every few minutes, the mattress above creaked, soft shifts, quiet sniffles, then a long sigh like someone trying not to break completely. She wanted to ignore it. She wanted to pretend she wasn't here, in some dusty corner of Akut, hiding from shadows too dark to name. But something in that cry, it was too familiar, too raw, too close to everything Bank had felt for weeks. So finally, Bank sat up and whispered, "Are you okay?" Silence. Then, slowly, a head peeked down. The girl was no older than 17, with tired eyes and a badly wrapped scarf. Her nose was runny. Her lips quivered. "I'm sorry," the girl whispered. "I didn't mean to disturb you." Bank shook her head. "You didn't. I couldn't sleep either." The girl climbed halfway down the bunk, her bony legs dangling above the floor. "What's your name?" she asked. Bank paused. Saad had warned her not to use her real name. "Tola," she lied. The girl smiled weakly. "I'm Peace." Peace. The irony stung. There was nothing peaceful about her sunken eyes or the bruises along her arms. Bank pointed gently. "What happened to your arm?" Peace looked away. "I tried to run from a house in Mao. The woman caught me. Said I was too stubborn for my price." She gave a sad laugh. "Can you imagine? Human beings pricing other human beings like we're onions in the market." Bank clenched her jaw. "You escaped?" Peace nodded. "Someone gave me Ani TD's number. I've been here 2 weeks." Bank lowered her gaze. "Do you ever feel like you're still trapped? Even when you've left?" Peace didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "Yes. Every time I close my eyes." They talked for another hour. About nothing and everything. About life before everything fell apart. About dreams that felt like lies now. Bank spoke of her mother. Peace spoke of her little brother back home in Wari. Neither of them mentioned the men. They didn't need to. The silence between them already carried the weight of it. The next morning, Bank woke up before the others. Ani TT was already cooking outside. Beans and pap. "Again. Eat fast," she said. "Yomi is coming." Bank's stomach twisted. She had almost forgotten the journalist. Almost. But now he was coming. And with him came a decision she wasn't ready to make. Tell her story, and risk being found again. Or stay quiet, and let others suffer in her place. Peace watched her across the compound. "Are you okay?" Bank nodded. "I don't know." Peace came closer. "Can I tell you something?" Bank looked up. "There were 5 of us in the house I escaped from. 5 girls. Only 2 of us made it out." Bank swallowed. Peace continued. "If someone had spoken earlier, maybe the rest of us wouldn't have ended up there." The silence was heavy between them. Then Peace whispered, "I think you have a voice. And maybe it's time you used it." By the time a black Toyota pulled up outside the compound an hour later, Bank had made her decision. She stepped out, heart pounding. Yomi came out of the car, wearing a navy shirt and glasses. He looked tired, but kind. He didn't smile, just held out his hand. "Are you ready?" Bank looked back at Peace, then forward again. "No," she said, "but I'll talk anyway." Bank sat on a stool in the back of a makeshift office, for concrete walls, no ceiling fan, and a cracked plastic table in the corner. The windows were covered with newspapers to block any outsider's view. Yomi set up his phone on a small tripod. He didn't pressure her. He simply asked, "Do you want to wear a mask?" Bank shook her head slowly. "Let them see me. They already know my face." Yomi gave a small nod, pressed record, and took a seat just outside the camera frame. "Whenever you're ready." Bank's hands trembled, but her voice, it didn't. She looked straight into the camera and said, "My name is Bank Adewale. I am a survivor of sexual trafficking in Ibukun City." And with that, the floodgates opened. She told everything, from the first time her friend Bimbo invited her out, to the man who offered 500,000 Nigerian nairas to touch her, to the night she saw a girl passed out, never waking up. She mentioned names, real names, first names, surnames, and the house in Brewa with the red door. Her voice cracked only once, when she spoke about Debbie. "I don't know where she is," Banks said, wiping her cheek. She was only 16. The entire confession lasted 48 minutes. When it ended, Yomi reached over and stopped the recording. Silence filled the room like thick smoke. "You're brave," he said. Bank gave a tired smile. "No, I'm just tired of hiding." 2 days later, Yomi released the edited version. He blurred her face, but left her voice untouched. The video went up on YouTube and Facebook, captioned, "Exclusive, Nigerian girl exposes powerful sex trafficking ring in Ibadan." Within 24 hours, it had over 600,000 views. By the second day, the video made it to Twitter trends. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag justice for bank. Hashtag Ibadan girls are not for sale. Hashtag inhuman trafficking. Then, the threats began. Yomi's inbox was flooded with warnings. Take the video down. You don't know who you're messing with. You'll end up like the others. Bank's temporary shelter was compromised. Someone had leaked her location. At 2:13 a.m., Auntie Titi banged on her door. You need to move. Now. She didn't wait for Bank to pack. Within 15 minutes, she and Peace were in the back of another vehicle. This one smaller, darker. Driven by a woman with a scar across her left cheek and no patience for questions. They were taken to a safe house in Ado-Ekiti. No phones allowed. No contact with anyone. Yomi promised to keep Bank updated through coded messages passed along by Titi. But Peace noticed the way Bank stared out the window every night. You think they'll come for us? She asked. Bank nodded. They already are. 3 days after the video went live, Bank's mother received a visit. For men. Black suits. No smiles. They claimed to be from the state office. But Bank's younger brother, Ige, knew something was wrong. He saw one of them slip something into Mama Bank's tea. She passed out 15 minutes later. The next morning, Ige ran to the church where Pastor Deli took him in. And by evening, Mama Bank was missing. When Titi told Bank, she screamed so loudly the neighbors called the landlord. No one knows where they took her, Titi whispered. Bank fell to the floor. This is my fault. But Titi shook her head. No. This is what monsters do when they're afraid. Back in Ibadan, Bimbo's face appeared on a live Instagram video. She laughed at Bank, called her a bitter soul, and a clout chaser. She wasn't trafficked, Bimbo said to 2,000 viewers. She just wasn't picked. That night, Bimbo's house was set on fire. No one knew who did it. But a message was spray-painted on her front gate. Some voices can't be buried. Meanwhile, the video kept spreading. It reached TV stations, foreign journalists. Even the state government released a statement. But Bank didn't care about press anymore. She just wanted to find her mother. She held Peace's hand in the dark and whispered, "If they took her, I'll go back. Even if it kills me." Peace looked at her, terrified. "You mean back to Ibadan?" Bank nodded. "Yes. I'm going to find her. And I don't care what happens to me." Ibadan City wasn't ready for her return. And neither was she. But Bank sat silently in the back seat of a dark gray Sienna van as it drove past the very streets that once felt like home. Ajasafe Street where she used to buy boli, the faded yellow corner shop where she once borrowed detergent on credit, the school she never got to graduate from. Now it all felt haunted, like a place that had buried her and was surprised she came back. Titi didn't agree with the plan. "Bank, you're not a soldier. This isn't your war to fight alone." But Bank had already made up her mind. The last message from Ige confirmed it. They took Mummy to a house on Okeo Crescent. "I saw the car. Same one from the video. I know it's them." Peace offered to come, but Bank shook her head. "If I don't return, make sure the story doesn't die." So Peace gave her a tiny Bible, one she had carried since she was 10. "For protection," she said, voice trembling. Bank smiled, tucked it into her jeans, and hugged her like a sister. Yomi arranged a safe contact in Ibadan, an undercover police officer named Inspector Folarin. Ex-military, silent as a ghost, with eyes that had seen too much. He met her at a fuel station near Iyanarunmu. "You don't speak unless I ask you to," he said. "You see anything suspicious, you blink twice." "Got it." Bank nodded. They moved in silence. No words. No comfort. Just the quiet certainty that danger was near. Okeo Crescent looked calm. Too calm. Birds chirped. A child played with a tire on the corner. Everything looked normal. But as they turned onto the street, Bank saw it. The house Ige described. Off-white. Iron gates. The car. Her heart dropped. It was all real. Folarin parked 2 streets away. He handed her a small listening device. "You'll wear this," he said. "Pretend to be one of them. They don't know your face is blurred in the video. Just act like you're coming to collect something. If anything goes wrong, we storm in." Bank's legs shook. She tried to remember how she looked the night she was almost sold for 500,000 Nigerian nairas. Then she slipped the earpiece in and got out. As she approached the house, The gates buzzed and opened on their own. She didn't even knock. The woman who greeted her wore a red lace blouse and gold bangles. Her eyes were sharp. Her smile was wide, but wrong. "Ah, Bank," she said like they were old friends. "You finally came to your senses." Bank forced a smile. "Yes, Ma. I came to correct my mistake." The woman waved her in. "They said you'd change. They said fear would bring you home." Bank stepped in. The door closed behind her. Inside, the house was cold and silent. Too many closed doors. Too many shadows. She followed the woman down a hallway. Then, she heard it. A faint cough from one of the rooms. Her mother. She recognized the sound like her own heartbeat. Bank turned her head slightly. "Ma, what room is that?" But before the woman could answer, another voice came from behind her. A man. Calm. Polished. "You think we didn't know it was you in that video?" Bank froze. She turned slowly. Standing in the hallway was Mr. Desmond, the man from the lodge in Ikoyi. The one who offered her the money. The one she escaped. His smile was snake-like. "You talk too much, Bank." She reached for the Bible in her pocket. But it wasn't there. Someone had taken it. Back in the van, Folarin whispered into the radio, "Something's wrong. I'm going in." His partner stopped him. "We don't have a warrant." Folarin's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll get arrested after." He stepped out of the van, gun tucked into his back waistband. And just as he approached the gate, a loud crash came from inside the house. Then a scream. Then silence. Inside the house, Bank was dragged into a dark room. Tied to a chair, Desmond stood over her, amused. "You thought you could destroy us with one video?" Bank didn't cry. She just looked up at him and said, "You haven't seen the second one." She was tied to a chair. Sweat clung to her forehead. Blood trickled from her bottom lip. But her voice didn't shake. Desmond paced in front of her like a lecturer with time to kill. Behind him, two men stood with folded arms, their faces covered in surgical masks. The woman in red lace blouse leaned in the corner, chewing gum like this was routine. "I don't think you understand what you've done," Desmond said softly. "That first video was a mistake. You could have disappeared quietly. But now," he pulled out his phone, tapped something, and Bank's own face appeared on screen. The blurred video now viral across West Africa. Bank didn't flinch. "You're afraid," she said quietly. Desmond stopped pacing. "What did you say?" "You're afraid. That's why you brought me here. Because you know people are watching." Desmond's face darkened. "Let me make this clear. No one is coming. No one knows this location. And even if they did..." Boom. The front gate exploded off its hinges. Gunshots followed, real ones. Men screamed outside. Someone yelled, "Police! Down!" Now, Desmond's eyes went wide. He rushed toward the door. But it was too late. Inspector Folarin kicked it in with the force of a man who'd buried too many girls like Bank. One shot. Then two. The masked men dropped. The woman in red tried to run. Didn't make it past the hallway. In seconds, the room was clear. Bank blinked against the smoke. Her ears rang. Folarin knelt beside her, cutting the ropes. "You all right?" She nodded. My mother? She's here. Weak, but alive." Tears streamed down Bank's face. Her entire body shook as Folarin helped her up. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw her mother, barely conscious, bruised, but breathing. They embraced. No words. Just tears. Just trembling. But that wasn't the end. Because Desmond had escaped. In the chaos, he'd slipped out through the back with a bag full of cash, phones, and memory cards. And he wasn't alone. He had one of the girls with him, Debbie. Back at the police station, Bank handed over a sealed envelope to Folarin. "What's this?" he asked. She looked him in the eye. The second video. Inside was a flash drive. A 12-minute recording of Debbie, barefaced, frightened, and trembling, talking about her first night in the lodge. About the man who branded her thigh. About the pills. About the other girls. It was filmed before she disappeared. Bank and Yomi had agreed to keep it hidden unless things went too far. Now, things had gone too far. The next day, Yomi released it. The second video hit harder than the first. Because now, there were two faces. Bank. And Debbie. One survived. One was still missing. Across the country, protests erupted. Ibukun girls held placards outside the mayor's office. "Where is Debbie? Close the lodges. Our bodies are not for sale." Churches marched. Schools issued statements. And powerful names began to trend. Desmond became Nigeria's most wanted man within 72 hours. Interpol got involved. But Bank, She didn't care about politics anymore. Her mission was clear. Find Debbie. That night, as she sat beside her sleeping mother in a hospital ward, Peace entered quietly. Banks stood, hugged her tight, and whispered, "I'm going after him." Peace pulled back, stunned. "But you're free now. You've exposed them. What more do you want?" Banks' face hardened. He still has her. And he won't stop. Outside the hospital, Yomi waited with his laptop and a map. He had just one sentence for her. "You ready for the next phase?" Bank took a deep breath, stared into the moonlit streets of Ibukun City, and nodded. "Yes. Let's finish this."